Shalom uvracha chaverim. Hi dear friends. Let's talk about the third Beis HaMikdash. So my friends, let's speak about something distant, something mystical to some, but is in fact more real today than at any time in the last 2,000 years. I'm talking about the third temple in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount. Not as a metaphor, not as a dream of the end of days, but as a concrete political and spiritual project that this generation could see come to life. Right now, Israel is governed by the most solidly right-wing and nationalist majority in its history. For the first time in decades, key ministers stand in front of cameras and speak openly about Jewish prayer on the Temple Mount, about changing the status quo, about moving from a posture of silent waiting to one of active preparation. The vessels are already forged. The priests are already trained. The architectural plans exist. When you connect the political will with the practical infrastructure, you realize that what was once a whispered prayer at the end of Yom Kippur or at the end of the Pesach Seder can become a building permit in our own time. The state of Israel, with this government, has the sovereign tools to begin that process. The question is no longer if we could build it. The question is whether we, the Jewish people, will dare to remember why we came back in the first place. And that brings us to the deepest truth. The Jewish people returned to the land of Israel, not Uganda, not Argentina, not some safe corner of the diaspora. Because our national contract was never just about saving Jewish bodies. Herzl's genius saved millions. But the divine compass that pulled the masses home pointed stubbornly to Jerusalem for a reason. But the divine compass that pulled the masses home was not only a physical refuge. Only Zion gives us the opportunity to reconnect the soul of the Jewish people with its source. The state of Israel is the body. The temple is the heart. We didn't cross deserts and oceans. We didn't survive every empire that tried to erase us, just to build a Silicon Valley on the Mediterranean. We came back to be a light unto the nations. And to switch, that turns that light on only in Jerusalem on that hilltop. Exactly where Abraham bound Isaac, where Solomon built the first house, and where the blueprint of the third temple is already unrolled. And this is not a selection tribal project, it is the universal repair of the world. The temple was always designed for all mankind. The 70 bulls we will sacrifice during Sukkot correspond explicitly to the 70 nations of the earth. The prophet Isaiah called it a house of prayer for all peoples. We are talking about a place where the soul, not just the Jewish soul, but the human soul reconnects to its creator. This is about moving from saving the body to healing the soul of all mankind. And what I want to show you step by step, how every detail of that third temple carries a practical, urgent message for us today. Let's start with sacrifices. We live in a world that consumes billions of animals each year, wrapped in plastic, disconnected from the moment a life ends. The temple forces us to stand close, to see the soul depart, to feel the fragility of existence. When a person brought an offering, our sages taught, he saw himself on that altar. It was the ultimate act of humility. My ego, my time, my effort, I sacrifice before God. And God in His mercy gave us this ritual to channel the human instinct for bloodshed away from our brothers and towards sanctity. As the Midrash says, sacrifices bring peace in a society still bleeding from the wounds of October 7th. A nation that has seen too much death. The temple's sacrificial system teaches us to sanctify human life, not to destroy it, and to share our bounty with the poor, the priest, the stranger, the Torah scholar. That is a message of healing we desperately need. Then there is the menorah. In the darkness of the holy place, a single flame stayed perpetually lit, an ancient technological breakthrough of being able to take full advantage of the day and the night. Yes, but so much more. It was the promise that God is with the brokenhearted. The light shone out from the narrow windows, radiating into the night of the world. It reminded every person who came with a broken heart that darkness is not the end. From this very darkness, light will be born. In a time of national trauma, the menorah's message is that we do not deny the pain. We kindle it into light and use that light to fix, to create a tikkun. The next is the Sanhedrin, the 70 elders who sat beside the temple. Their number was chosen to match the 70 nations. This was not just a Jewish Supreme Court, it was a global arbitration center, a legal system of such brilliance that kings and nations would bring their disputes to Jerusalem. It settled conflicts between husband and wife, saved businesses from collapse, and prevented wars. Out of Zion went forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem, not to dominate, but to build bridges, to create compromise, to bring peace. Imagine a Jerusalem where the world's sharpest minds, rooted in a divine law, offer a moral and legal framework that the entire international community can trust. That is Sanhedrin's promise. Walk further inside and you meet the altar of incense and the songs of the Levites. The experience was a complete sensory embrace. The smell of 11 sacred spices, the choral harmonies of the Levites, the visual splendor of the gold and the light, all of it aimed at one thing, to bypass the calculation brain and reach directly into the soul. But here's the key. That awe, that love, that overwhelming emotion was directed not to a human being or to a human king or government, not to a political party, but to the master of the universe, blessed be he. It was the ultimate antithesis against idolatry of any kind, whether the worship of money, power, or personality. We need that sanctuary of the soul today. And in the heart of the temple, the Holy of Holies, the Ark of the Covenant. The Talmud tells us a physical miracle. The Ark took up no space. You could measure the room and the Ark simply did not factor into the dimensions. That was God declaring, I am beyond your calculations. Even your greatest artificial intelligence today, your most advanced machines are still just a calculation. The divine is higher, and on top of the ark, the two golden cherubim, male and female, faced each other with wings touching when the people were united. The ultimate sign of God's presence amongst us was not fire from heaven. It was love and respect between human beings. When we stop speaking evil of one another, when we love our fellow as ourselves, the Shekhinah dwells. The temple thus becomes the world's epicenter of unity. Finally, look at the materials themselves. Dirt, rock, wood, gold, the lowest elements of the universe, uplifted into a house for the infinite, elevated higher than our heads, walls and ceilings, right? That is the entire Jewish story. We take the most mundane, broken parts of this world, the daily labor, the chopped wood, the organizational logistics, and we give them holy purpose. The temple was a work of art made from the ground, and so is the state of Israel. So is the Jewish people. So is the spirit and the soul of man. We are building something that can house the divine, only when we remember that the physical is a vessel for the spiritual, the body for the soul. So I put it to you again. Why are we here? this contested, holy, beautiful land. Not because we needed another safe haven. Uganda was on the table. The Jewish mind could have thrived anywhere. We returned to the land of Israel, to the Holy Land, because our collective soul has a mission that is inseparable from Jerusalem. And with a right-wing government now holding the reins, the political path to rebuilding is more open than it has ever been in 19 centuries. This is not a fantasy for the Messianic age. It is a practical next step for a sovereign nation that finally has the power to honor the deepest clause in its ancient covenant, to be a light unto the nations. The third temple will not be an ivory tower for a priestly castle. It will be a house of prayer for all nations, a light into the darkness, a legal center for world peace, a sensory school for the soul, and a healing for the traumas of the last 2,000 years. The ultimate declaration that the Jewish people are home, not just to save our bodies, but to reconnect our soul and the soul of all mankind to the Creator of heaven and earth. Blessed be He. That is the reason we came home. That is the reality we now have. With this government and with the next government, we need to begin to build. First in our minds, in our hearts, in our understanding. We need to understand that we have to have the courage to finish the journey and to fulfill the prophecy. May we merit to see the building of the temple in our day, and may we merit to be part of that process.